Taking on a senior leadership role next, I was overseeing safeguarding, SEN and wellbeing, our therapeutic clinical provision with a team of counsellors and also our non-clinical provision. I was working in a school that was one of the most disadvantaged, with one of this significantly disadvantaged community, and yet all of this provision we had in place, a nurture team, nothing was enough. We still had gang and knife crime issues. We were even sadly on the national news for a knife crime incident. We had one of the highest exclusion figures in our locality, not Northamptonshire, I hasten to add. And I was going into work every single day watching our most vulnerable SEN, often undiagnosed, go around in a vicious, brutal, unrelenting and ineffectual cycle of detentions, behaviour reports, pastoral consequences, fixed-term exclusions, reintegration meetings where they would parrot the same promises to improve their behaviour over and over again that they couldn't keep. Or alternatively, they'd come to those reintegration meetings ready for a fight, actually not ready to admit what they'd done wrong, being sent home because they couldn't be readmitted when they were not acknowledging anything about their behaviour that was wrong. The mainstream schools get stuck in this cycle, exhausting or feeling that we've exhausted every option, every traditional means at our disposal to keep them in school. And it reminds me of that famous quote about insanity. We're doing the same thing again and again, and yet expecting different results. Actually, that's probably true of all society. If we think about crime and we think about punitive approaches to crime, actually in our prison system at the moment, we have a disproportionate number of men, as well as women, but majority men, with undiagnosed SEN. We can see the patterns in schools mirrored in the patterns in our criminal justice system. We can see the same trends. If you talk to any sociology teachers, if you're in a secondary school, go and talk to them and ask them about the unit, which is all about the sociology of education. Ask them about the statistics. Ask them about the chronic inequalities embedded into our education system. And then ask them about the unit on crime. And you'll see similar stories being told in both those units. If you're in primary, you can just research it online and find GCSE units taught in sociology. You'll see the same information. And the debate rages on, doesn't it? What else do we do with these young people? Having alternative provisions, traditional alternative provisions, a little bit different to mine. Everyone would say we need them. Our PRUs, they do fantastic work. Yes, they have to go through rejection to get there, but once they get there, they'll get the input they need, often the very kind of trauma-informed approaches these children need. Yes, the rejection will affect them, maybe even have a traumatising effect. There'll be judgment from family, there'll be judgment from friends, there'll be judgment from the whole community. Being excluded from a whole school community brings with it a sense of judgment. They may even those young people may own the rejection of proof of how bad they are, of how tough they are. It's just the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And they may find they get therapeutic input and the key interventions that they need that were not available in mainstream, sadly. The family support that is needed will be there. But we need to be under no illusions that that exclusion and that rejection leaves a mark. How many of us know that the brain registers rejection or emotional distress in the same way as it registers physical pain, physical distress? So it leaves a mark, a scar, we could even say, although the young person won't often show you that. It brings me to a story of one more young person. Her name I'll leave as Kay, and she was excluded from our secondary school, where I was a senior leader. She used to come back on a Friday afternoon because they finished early at the alternative provision once she'd been excluded, and she would stand at the gate at the end of the day. She would want to say hi to all her friends. She'd want to say hi to her head of year, who she'd built a really outstanding and excellent relationship with. As part of her work at the alternative provision, she was featured in the newspaper. She had created a piece of artwork, a mural, that went on the side of a local building in the community. It was an amazing story of success, of how going to alternative provision had helped her. But she would come back and beg to be let back into the school. And she, I think, is one of the only young people who I've ever seen admit that the sting of that rejection remained. So back to my experiment. It is a form of early intervention. It is designed to pick up those children that long term we might find being excluded from secondary schools. It is about working one day a week to apply the strategies to build capacity in our children, our young people, our professionals, the parents and the carers, most of all. We're implementing reasonable adjustments. We're using so many strategies. You can see them on my slides. We're using tapping rituals. We're using mindfulness and grounding techniques. We're using an amazing tool or tip that I picked up from a psychologist called Dr. Margot Sunderland at a national conference called bilateral stimulation. You can find it on YouTube, or you can contact me for more information afterwards. There are so many things we are doing which are fantastic and can be transferred back to the school environment and classed as a reasonable adjustment. Does it mean going above and beyond? Yes, it does. Does it mean that we have to be more curious and reflective, more compassionate, more understanding when we naturally want to put in place consequences, punishments? Yes, it does. Our approaches in schools can change, can use some of these strategies, and that's why I'm doing this work. When you know better, you do better, Maya Angelou said. And I couldn't be part of the school system anymore, sadly, because I knew I could do something different. But those of us who are still in schools, we're there to transform it. We're there to do something different, to be creative, to find the solutions and the strategies that other people maybe haven't considered. It doesn't mean we don't have consequences in place. It absolutely is crucial we keep those consequences. It means we look at things through a different lens. We look at behaviour through a different lens, potentially. So there are just a couple of things to ponder and to keep thinking on. Some of the strategies I use are deceptively simple, but they are based in good, strong, robust findings from neuroscience. And the more we find these strategies in education, the more we can transform the lives of young people and the life chances of young people in our care, so that they can flourish, not just now, academically, but long term in their future. I'm really grateful for you joining me. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Take care.